They left everything and followed him. This scene is depicted in that new series, TV series on the life of Christ. It's actually on the web. The first episode is done. It's going to be spread out. It's called The Chosen. I highly recommend it. If you haven't checked it out yet, you'll much appreciate it. Anyway, in one of the episodes, it gets to the point, like we are here, following the life of Christ in the Gospel of Luke. This is very early in the ministry of Jesus. It gets to that call of the first disciples, and it starts with Simon Peter. In The Chosen, the little backstory that they create, which is likely, but it's conjecture, it just shows the desperation of Peter and how you sometimes go through hard times, and they're behind in taxes and in debt, and they really need to catch fish, and they set it up so that this is sort of Simon and his crew, with the help of John and James and his brother Andrew, of course. They're not able to catch anything all night. Fishermen would fish at night. Why? Because when you put the nets in the water, fish can't see the nets. That's why they swim into them. If you fish in the daylight, they'll go, oh, there's a net going around it, So that's where, this is early in the morning when this takes place, and they are coming in from fishing all night and cleaning the nets. And they have caught absolutely nothing. So when Jesus tells him to go out, Peter, and you can hear a little bit of that just in the gospel here, but this is worthless. Why would we do this? We've been at it all night and haven't caught a single thing. We were the best parts of the lake to fish. Lake Gennesaret is also Galilee, same name, same lake, different names. And so it's really to humor Jesus. Well, if you say so, Master, we'll do this. And I mean, he's polite, but of course, that's what makes it so dramatic, is the catch is so abundant, beyond comprehension, to the point of tearing the nets, filling 2 boats to the point of sinking in one cast. Obviously, this is something far beyond anyone's comprehension. And it's those kind of events that cause this encounter with Christ to completely shake these first disciples, but also it happens in conversion experiences even today. But it shakes someone to the core of their being, and they realize, I cannot look at the world in any other way now than through the eyes of Christ. That's the change, the conversion experience. I cannot look at the world in any other way than through the eyes of Christ, the vision of Christ. And so they left everything behind. Sherry Waddell, who wrote Forming Intentional Disciples, she refers to this as dropping your nets. There are so many stages of conversion. Part of it is just, initial trust. Christians, they're good people, That's the beginning, But then to the point of real interest and looking into it. And maybe even active study. But it's when you drop your nets and say, it doesn't matter what else I do in the world, I'm going to follow this man. I'm going to follow Christ. Christ is the center of my life. That's the conversion experience. And that's what happened here to Peter. And it also happened to Pope Gregory at some time in his life. At some point, he grew up as an aristocrat in a Roman family. And a family that was dedicated to public service, and so he became a public servant and actually was the prefect of Rome. He was from a Roman family. And this is, where the Roman Empire was starting to decline somewhat, and he was instrumental, after he was pope, of eventually helping to bolster it and providing some infrastructure, especially outreach to the poor. But before all that, he had his conversion experiences that made him realize he wants to commit himself completely to Christ. And then he was already founding monasteries, but then eventually, as a layman, was founding monasteries. But then eventually chose to become a monk and really wanted to just live his life for Christ. But of course, he had skills and talents that the church needed, and they were drawn forth from him, whether he wanted it or not, and became an administrator in the church and eventually elected pope. But he did a lot of other good works before that. But he was just one of these multi-talented people. The ability to combine holiness of life and exemplary spirituality with incredible administrative skills. That's a hard combination to find. But he also knew he had his flaws. But let me just say, I mention all this in conjunction with this conversion experience because there's a reason that someone starts to follow Christ like St. Peter. And then there's maybe a deeper reason that you stay with it down the road. Like when Peter, after Jesus was crucified, decided to even continue to follow, to stay part of that band, even though he denied Christ for a moment there. I think it's when we think of our own lives, for me as a priest, there's a reason I was ordained, and then there are more reasons that have loaded up over the years why I stay ordained, Or there's a reason why you get married, there's a reason you stay married. There's So it's, the call to conversion is not a one-time momentary event that's a matter of historical record because you got a marriage certificate or ordination certificate or a baptismal certificate. Hopefully it's being renewed every day, or it can go fallow. And it's a struggle, and I love this from Pope Gregory. He was the one who coined the term, the title of the Pope, as the servant of the servants of God. And it's indicative of his approach to ministry, is that he truly saw himself absolutely at service to the people of God. Being the Pope, and it wasn't understood maybe the same way as it has developed in the ages, but still he truly saw it as a servitude, a role of servitude. But he knew he was flawed, and this is a reading provided in the Office of Readings today, where he says about himself, what's a pastor to be? A watchman always stands at the height so he can see afar what's coming. Anyone appointed to be the watchman for the people must stand on the height for all his life and help with the foresight. What's coming down the road? How do I prepare for that? And as in his role of pastor, how do I prepare my people for that? How hard it is for me to say this, though, for by these very words I denounce myself. I cannot preach with any competence, and yet insofar as I do succeed, still I myself do not live my life according to my own preaching. I just love that humility. He's saying, I preach what I know is true, but I'm also in the process of conversion. So again, it's a lifelong struggle. There's that initial joy of falling in love, and then you'll do anything for your beloved. And then sometimes it's discipline. Later it's discipline, but it's a worthy discipline. In fact, I think when it's that way, when we do acts of love that are out of duty, but we do it with conviction and faithfully, that's a greater act of love than something that's, motivated purely by emotion, because it says it's at the core of who you are. Anyway, he says, I do not deny my responsibility. I recognize I'm slothful and negligent, but perhaps the acknowledgement of my fault at least will win me pardon from my just judge. I could have written these lines, I thought, oh yeah, that's me. Indeed, when I was in the monastery, I could curb my idle talk and usually be absorbed in my prayers. Since I assumed the burden of pastoral care, my mind can no longer be collected. It is concerned with so many matters. And then he enumerates a number of those. I think that's just the busyness of our lives. We all say we want to pray more, be more collected, have balance in our lives, But it's a constant struggle. And even when we do get plenty of time, I can relax. And then the day goes by and I realize, I haven't prayed. I said I was going to pray today. I had a whole day. Or I said I was going to do something loving for another person. I just kind of wasted the day. That can happen, or just getting preoccupied with so many details, what's most important can get lost. So I love it that he's a saint who also struggled. I think we need to know that about these great saints. We're all in that same road, and so I just think as we consider this sign of conversion on St. Peter's part, and Gregory was a successor of Peter, but we all are in some sense spiritually through baptism successors of that initial call of Christ. May we continually renew that commitment and just stay at the task. Again, being a saint doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you keep at the task. When you fail, you pick yourself up, you ask forgiveness, and keep moving forward and acknowledge we're all sinners, but we are sinners who continually catch ourselves and keep our sights on Christ, so that, like Peter left everything behind, we remember from now on, I purely follow the vision of Christ.